Okay, thanks for staying with us. Time now for Media Watch, which we're joined by James Creedon. Hi, James.
Good evening, Georgia.
Okay, so we're going to start off at the Republican National Convention, where Clint Eastwood seems to have lost his audience a little.
He kind of went a bit mad and started speaking to a chair on set. This is down in Tampa, Florida, at the Republican National Convention. And what he did was he sort of tried to pretend that he was having this conversation with President Obama on stage, and President Obama was absent. And I presume that was meant to be a metaphor for Obama not doing enough or not being present enough on the national scene to solve the country's problems, unemployment, which he mentioned quite a bit. Except the thing is, you'd have to be pretty snappy to pull off a stunt like that. It's not that easy. And the thing is, he's 82. He was stuttering a little bit. His voice was crackling somewhat, and it made him look a little bit old and dothery, to be honest. I know, but it's his idea. So let's take a listen to an extract of Clint sort of failing to pull that joke off.
So, Mr. President, how do you handle promises that you made when you were running for election, and how do you handle it? I mean, what do you say to people? Do you just I know people were wondering. You don't have it. What do you mean, shut up?
As somebody said earlier, sort of tumbleweed, kind of a reminder of the Westerns. It didn't really work, right? It would have had to be done differently. Others are saying he must have deviated from the script. In any case, the whole idea was that this would warm up the Republican National Convention for Mitt Romney's speech, which came later the same evening. In fact, that incident took up much more media attention, in fact, than Mitt Romney's speech. Depending on the media, I suppose, right? But there are graphs, and I was going to show you them, but unfortunately, a slight technical hiccup. There were graphs showing that on Twitter, for example, hashtag Eastwooding went way, way, way over hashtag Mitt Romney. In other words, the warm-up act overtook, in terms of media attention, the actual main act itself.
But clearly for all the wrong reasons.
That's it. So unfortunately, it just didn't really work out that well. It became a big trend online. You had President Obama showing a photo of himself sitting in the presidential chair saying the seat is taken, this seat is taken. So it played into the political spin of the Democratic Party, who are particularly savvy when it comes to social media, and something like this can be turned to their advantage.
Right, okay. Now, there's also been a lot of reaction to a case of very bad translation in Iran. This concerning Egypt's President Mohamed Morsi.
That's right. Let's take a look at this photo. This is in Tehran, and it is on the occasion of the non-aligned movement summit in Tehran. So you had the Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi in town. You can see him there in the foreground. Now, the thing is, Egypt and Iran differ over Syria. Right? So what they did, cunningly, those Iranians, in order for the members of the public not to figure out this, they just had the translator mislead the public. So every time Syria was mentioned by Mohamed Morsi, the translator said Bahrain. This happened on 3 different occasions. It's pretty...
It's pretty blatant.
Unless you're an Iranian who doesn't speak Arabic and you're just kind of thinking, oh, well, there you go, that's what he's saying. So you're right, a pretty kind of shocking incident of misleading the public via translation. And I suppose a translator's job really is to be as faithful as possible to the original intended message. So I suppose instead of it being lost in translation, we're talking about really just being misled, willfully misled in translation.
Okay, now, trouble in... Well, I was going to say paradise, but it's been far from that for a long time now. Anne Sinclair has finally admitted that she is separated from Dominique Strauss-Kahn.
That's right. Now, this was in an interview to Le Parisien newspaper this morning. Lots of rumours about this in the last couple of weeks and months in France and in Paris circles. But neither party had confirmed this. In fact, they had said they would sue Closer magazine in France for circulating that rumour. In any case, Le Parisien interviewed her today. I'll just show you the top of the article. Anne Sinclair, I am doing very well, thank you. This is a photograph of her. Now, the interview was to mark the return to work after the August holidays in France, or la rentrée. Now, at the very bottom, they asked her a question, how are you doing since your separation from Dominique Strauss-Kahn? Now that, until this point, had not been publicly admitted, so one would imagine that she allowed them to ask this question. She said, I'm doing fine, I took holidays, I'm working very hard on the American elections at the moment. She is the editor in France of the Huffington Post French website. So this is big news, I guess. It's her way of saying, I've moved on.
Okay, and there's a rare blue moon tonight, surprisingly to coincide at the day of Neil Armstrong's funeral.
That's right. Pretty strange cosmic humour, I suppose you would say. A blue moon is when you have a full moon twice in a month. It only happens every couple of years. And, well, Neil Armstrong, his funeral service was, in fact, today. Neil Armstrong's service on the same day as a blue moon. So many people pointing out that is a strange coincidence indeed, and his family actually calling on members of the public to just have a little wink at the moon tonight as a way of, I suppose, paying tribute to the first man to walk on the moon, blue or otherwise.
Even the heavens saying goodbye to an old friend. Brilliant. Thanks, James, for that roundup with Media Watch.
Thanks indeed.